Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I got another good deck profile for you guys today. It's another update on my zombie world deck. I know a lot of y'all have been mentioning this in the comments about Dragon Necro and Super Pro. Yes, I'm well aware of that strategy. But the last build I played was a Shiranui style build, meaning I was focusing a lot on synchros. But this build is slightly different than that. It does still incorporate some of the Shiranui engine, just because they're still good for your synchro climbs, but this one runs the instant fusion tech and of course super poly. And luckily enough, I finally got my hands on Dragon Necro. So I wanted to put together a totally different deck based around that. So I was kind of like replying to a lot of you. I was like, yes, I know about him. I don't have the card yet, but I will build a deck around it. Just wait. But anyway, I've needed to do some different things with this deck just because I wanted to see like how well, like what matchups were good against this. And how to work around those matchups. And honestly, this deck actually is still really good. It's got a lot of good matchups, especially for a rogue deck. So for anyone who wants to try a low budget rogue deck, this is the deck for you. And honestly, like you don't really need to invest too much, especially on the extra deck. Like in total, I would say this deck will probably cost you about maybe $60 to $80 tops, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on like. Because I haven't checked on Nightmare Unicorn. Like I know that card's still pretty pricey. I know Vampire Sucker is a little pricey too. But the main deck and the side deck shouldn't cost you very much, so it's just really the extra deck that needs the work. But anyway, enough chat. Let's go and get started. So for the main deck, playing 2 copies of Doom King Balladrog. There's no reason to run 3. He's too bricky at 3. You definitely just want to try to dump him into the grave. If you do happen to open up with him, if you have Unizombie, you could still make full use of him. But the great thing about this card is that he brings himself back at the end of, or at the start of every standby phase if he's in your graveyard. And he has 2 different effects. Whenever a zombie monster activates an effect once per chain, you can either negate that effect, like the last effect, or you can banish 1 monster on the field or in the grave. So, really powerful card, really good for disruption. I definitely like it. Next, 2 copies of Necro Banshee. This gets you Zombie World. You can banish it, quick effect from field or grave. So, really comes in handy. It's a good way to also like deal with cards like Nat Beast. So like Nat Beast can't stop Necro Banshee's effect. I'm not sure how anti-spell fragrance works against this, but if you guys know the full ruling, let me know in the comments. That way I know for future reference. I'm now only playing 2 copies of Glow Bloom, just because like I needed to make some room for some other cards. And honestly, I think 2 is all you'll ever need, just because this card does have that restriction against you. And if you want to bring out like a certain monster from your extra deck, unfortunately, Gold Bloom might restrict you from that purpose, so just kind of like have to be careful with that. Next, 3 copies of Shiranui Solitaire. This card's pretty standard. Gets you all your zombie type tuners. You mainly want to aim for Unizombie, so yeah. 1 Spirit Master goes really well with Shogun Saga and Shiranui style Swallow Slash. Lets you, if it's banished, you can pop 1 face-up card on the field. 1 Spectral Sword, since I still like to use this ability. And I always try to make full use of it by using a level 6 Synchro monster and go into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So definitely helps. 3 Unizombie. Also pretty standard. Gets you all your zombie monsters to the grave as quickly as it can. It also adjusts your monster's levels. And of course the monster reborn of the deck, Mizuki. And a pretty spicy tech. 2 copies of Danger Mothman. A lot of people underestimate this card, but for me with this deck is like you want to discard your cards. You definitely want to get your zombies in the grave. And Mothman is basically a Dark World dealing, so it also gets you, just to give you an idea of what your opponent might be playing. And if you don't like Danger Mothman, or if you want to take a gamble, you can play Hand Destruction instead, just to, discard 2 cards and draw 2 cards. And just know that the discard 2 with Hand Destruction is not cost, so definitely helps. Alright, so for hand traps, I'm playing 5 in total actually. Playing 2 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Bell since they're zombies, and this card is technically a hand trap, Vampire Furline. Okay, so it's a pseudo hand trap, but at least it's searchable with Glow Bloom. And it's just generic for zombies because she powers up all your zombie monsters just by paying your life points, so I really like what this card can really offer. Alright, so moving on to spells. Playing 3 Zombie World, 3 Called by the Grave, just because I feel like terraforming is not really necessary. But Called by the Grave is definitely much needed. It's a staple, and like I said, with Zombie World, I don't really need terraform because I have multiple ways of already getting it out on the field. So all I have to do is just pitch Necro will banish you to the grave as quickly as I can, and then get ways to get Doom King or Glow Bloom into the grave. So, and you got, like I said, you got multiple ways of doing this. 3 instant fusion. You definitely want to try to open up with this because you definitely want to get into Vampire Sucker without wasting your normal summon a little too early. 2 Super Poly. Now that it is at 2, I have 2 different targets for this card, so that's why I'm running 2. 1 for 1, Foolish Barrow, and 1 Monster Reborn, of course. Still sucks that Soul Charge is banned, but it is what it is. A lot of people were kind of tired of that card, as was I, so it's understandable. And then lastly, the only traps I'm playing is Shinryu style Swallow Slash. Like I said, with this card you distribute 1 zombie monster, then target 2 cards on the field, destroy them. Then banish 1 Shinryu monster from your deck, and la-di-da-di-da-di. It's once per turn, but like I said, it's a really good form of disruption. It's basically the Twin Twisters of this deck, and doesn't just pop spells and traps, pops anything. So, again, this card really works really well against the Mystic Mine, because you can just pop that Mystic Mine, and you can pretty much go from there. Alright, so that's it for the main deck. I believe that's 41 cards if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, moving on to the extra deck. Playing 2 copies of Vampire Sugar. It's really needed. If a zombie special summoned back from the grave, it doesn't matter whose it is, you get to draw 1 card. This card also acts as a Monarch Stormforth. So you distribute one of your opponent's monsters to summon a zombie, so it's really good. 1 Link Karibo, Nightmare's Phoenix, and Unicorn. If I didn't have room for Cerberus, so I'm just running the ones that matter more. 1 Mech Knight Crusader Avermax. Not running Borlo Dragon just because this card's a lot easier to summon out, especially with the fact that I have the instant fusion tech, so I feel like Crusader Avermax a little bit better in some ways because he just can't be targeted, and he can't be, and your opponent can't attack your monsters other than this card, and he gains power for every monster that he battles with, so it's a once per battle effect. And even if my opponent manages to steal this with Borlo Dragon, good thing is that at the end of the next turn, once he's sent to the graveyard, I can shuffle back 1 card on the field, non-targeting, non-destruction. So I can get rid of that Borlo Dragon that just took control of him. And honestly, he gets around Boral Sword Dragon because, he'll just gain the attack points of Boral Sword. For my synchros, playing 1 Shogun Saga. It's really good for OTKs. 1 Samurai Saga, it's a level 6 that goes well with my Spectral Sword, and I definitely like to use him just so I can go into Crystal Wing. And for the other 2, I felt like were really good were Borlo Savage Dragon and Scarlet Light Red Dragon Archfiend. And I still like to run this card because this card is insanely good in time. So if you need a card that's really good for time rolls, this is the card that you want to try to use. Because everyone's special summons right now, and Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend just burns your opponent as long as the monster is weaker than him. For my instant fusion targets, running 1 Sea Monster Theseus. It's a zombie type, so I figured why not, and plus it just helps you link climb. 1000 Ice Restrict, just because, free spot removal, and it's a Link Karibo target. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon for Super Poly, and of course the new addition to my extra deck, Dragon Necro Nether Soul Dragon. Really powerful card, just requires 2 zombie type monsters, so you could just steal your opponent's monsters as long as Zombie World is out on play. So, enough said about that. Alright, so for the side deck, my side deck's a little different than most, but that's okay. I'm running 3 copies of Denko Sekka for any back row heavy deck, in case if I don't have any of my cards that would normally pop spells or traps. Denko Sekka is a good enough second to play. 3 Mind Control. I mean, I still feel like it's just as good as Crackdown. I'm still debating which one I like better, so I think Mind Control, in my opinion, is still slightly better in some regards, but it really depends. Next up, 3 Shared Ride. A lot of decks still search, so figured it's still good. 3 Rivalry. I don't like to main deck this right now because a lot of decks in this format are actually sticking to one type of monster now. And at first I was considering there can only be one, but I was like, nah, that's actually a bad idea. My deck actually gets hurt from that. So Rivalry is just there if I ever need it, but I don't think you should main deck it. And lastly, 3 Red Reboot, or you can go Eradicator Epidemic Virus. It's really at a personal preference at this point, so yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.